Welcome to the podcast today. Your hosts, Bobby Maximus and Joe Cebula. And as always, keeping fitness real, keeping life real. I can't stress this enough. We're a couple of normal guys. No TRT, normal enough.
Normal.
No TRT, no PEDs, no trust funds. Joe's got 2 kids. I've got 3. We're married. We got jobs. Now, yes, our jobs in the fitness industry, don't hold that against us. I actually do a lot of non-fitness stuff, Joe. So do you. We do editing. We do video. We do content creation. We write. You do sound on movie sets. Like we actually do real stuff. You might be surprised how much of my day is spent on a computer or on a device. Like it's not just living in the gym every single day. So we're normal guys giving you just real, honest advice on how to make you fit. No hacks, no gimmicks, no 3 easy payments of $9.99. If you came here looking for that, if you came here looking for some type of magic secret, you came to the wrong damn place. And on that note, today we actually have a bit of a personal topic to talk about. We want to talk about honestly, how life sucks, how you're never going to get a break, how there's always something that's not going to go your way, how something, somebody, somewhere, whatever maker you believe in is always going to throw some big monkey wrench into your plans. So today we've got our young hero of this fable. His name's Joe Cebula. And Joe's dad has been in the hospital. Joe, I'll let you talk a little bit about that. But not the ideal thing for your fitness or your well-being or your work-life balance.
Well, and there's actually 2 different people that have been in the hospital in this past week. So one of my absolute best friends since junior high school, a man who was a brother to me, basically adopted by the family. He survived the Widowmaker on Saturday. So round of applause for him. I'm glad he pulled through. But that was a really scary moment.
I got to interject, and I'm not saying this to be funny. When you say he survived the Widowmaker, like he survived the Marvel Universe character, the Widowmaker, or like his wife tried to kill him. Like, what are we talking about?
When you say he had a massive heart attack. So he had the LAD artery, the main artery coming into the heart was at 100% blockage. There's a 12% survival rate. He pulled through.
Okay.
On the flip side, my father has been hospitalized, and he's dealing with a whole nother set of problems. His was not an acute thing. It was brought on by his complete lack of self-care. And so he is and this is why I want to contrast these two, because on the one hand, our mutual friend, JP, survived this, what they call the Widowmaker. And he's young and he takes care of himself, and he's very much takes ownership of his own health and fitness. He runs another podcast, kind of in the same sort of genre as ours. His is much more like mental health related. Ours is much more like physical health related. So this is a guy who is very cognizant of his behavior and the things that he's trying to do to help just improve his quality of life all around. And he pulls through, and he was in the hospital one day. One day he was overnight for observation. They released him, and now, yes, he has a mountain to climb of therapy, of things that he has to do. They have to try to figure out like how much damage has been done to the muscles of his heart. Try to figure out what his limitations are going to be. I mean, he'll be on medication the rest of his life, and he is very engaged in this process. Very, very wants to be there for his children. He's got 3 young kids. And so again, he's taken ownership of his fitness a long time ago. And I credit that to his survival. I credit the fact that he did take care of himself, that he was able to pull through on something where most do not.
Yeah. Now I want to add something, Joe, and I can speak to my experience with JP because I've got to be friends with him as well, thanks to you. But if you're listening to this, JP is you. That's you. Like, I know you're sitting there listening to this thinking, I'm not going to have a heart attack. I'm not going to say JP worked out to the extent that I work out, Joe. I'm not going to say he sleeps like I sleep. I'm not going to say he has an ice bath and a sauna and he takes an incredulous amount of fish oil. Like, that's not JP. But at the same time, JP works out far more than your average man. He drinks. He enjoys a drink every now and then, but he drinks less than the average man. I'm not going to say his diet's perfect, but his diet is better than the average man. And when JP came to my gym to work out, JP was not out of shape, and I have a very high standard. So I just want to be clear that JP is you. In fact, he's probably better than you. He's probably more fit than you. He probably takes care of himself better than you. And he was still susceptible to a major heart attack. So don't sit there thinking that you're immune to this. This stuff is never going to happen to you. This thing, and by thing, I mean heart attack, cancer, prostate issues, gut issues, like whatever that
Again,
is.
Life sucks. A plane crashing on your house, a meteorite from space landing in your backyard. Like, there's things you cannot mitigate ahead of time. There's some things you can only react to.
Now with your dad, you said it's more of a chronic
Totally
type
different.
thing. Now,
Yes.
he, due to his lack of self-care, that affected him, and he made that choice to a degree. He made his bed. He's laying in it now. But you didn't choose this, Joe. And you're in a position now, we talked about this yesterday, where you're left to take care of it. But you didn't choose this. Let's be clear on this.
Right.
This landed on your plate.
Yeah.
And so now what?
But this is a case. This is a case now of he's elderly. My father's a widow. My mom passed away about 10 years ago, and so there is some understandable I guess mental health stuff that's involved in this. But I mean, he's also a lifelong drinker. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, where you say JP drinks less than the average person, I promise you my dad drinks more, much more than the average person. And that was part of what led to his current situation. He's wheelchair bound. The neuropathy in his legs is bad enough that he cannot get up and get around on his own. He refuses help, right? The nursing staff that's available, he refuses to utilize it. It's a case where he's basically self-destructive, and he's winning that fight. He's very much winning that fight. And so now he sits in a hospital bed, using a machine to breathe. He's got all kinds of tubes and everything running into him. But it's his choice, and that's difficult. But what I think is really interesting, again, is that these two events happened so close to each other. I mean, within days. And that it's this absolute opposite ends of the spectrum of the thing that you can never really be prepared for. And to JP's credit, I mean, his brother had this heart attack years before, his older brother. And so he was at least familiar enough with A, the likelihood that this could occur, and B, also having things like, baby aspirin nearby. Understanding what his brother went through would help give him a little heads up, maybe, right? And so he was able to respond very quickly and get the help he needed very, very quickly, which was a huge factor in his survival rate. But also, just the stuff that he had done previously, if he was 30 pounds overweight, a chronic smoker, already had multiple comorbidities, there's no way he would have pulled through.
No, and Joe, that's what happened to my dad.
Yeah.
My dad died of the same heart attack at 49, but my dad drank more than the average person. My dad was active enough, but not really. Like, he played softball. We're from Canada, so you can laugh at me for this, but he did curling, did a little bit of bowling, but it's not like he exercised. Do you know what I mean? Went for the odd walk. And I mean the odd walk. Like, if my dad walked once a month, that would be like a thing, right? So my dad dropped dead of that heart attack. So I've been cognizant of that my whole life. Like, you laugh at me for the amount of fish oil I take. It's because I'm doing everything I can I went for a cardioangiogram at 36. I had to beg them to give me one, almost like force my way into it, which, and this is going down a rabbit hole, but I'm shocked in the US pay-to-play medical system that I have to beg to get a medical procedure. Like, dude, I'm paying out of pocket for this. Like, do the thing to me. You know what I mean? But my dad died of it, so I was very cognizant of it too. But I think the point we're really getting here, Joe, and this podcast is born out of a conversation we've had the last couple of days. Bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
So you're one of your best friends almost dropped dead. You've got to be there for him in some capacity. And now there's your dad. Now, the easy thing to say is, Joe, you be selfish, you walk away from it all. Leave your dad to fend for himself. That's not realistic. You're not going to do that, and no good person is going to do that. And so what have you been doing? You've been driving an hour and a half, 2 hours one way and back every day, sitting by the hospital bed, trying to help, trying to do the right thing. At the same time, you're trying to be there for your friend. Yes. But what happens in this world is stuff like this happens, and then we sacrifice ourselves completely. And then all our goals, all our dreams, all our things go down the toilet. And
it would be easy. It would be easy for me to just say, I can't work out this week. I can't, I'm not in control of my diet. I can't focus on work things. I have, something that is legitimately super important to me that's happening right in front of me. I'm under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, right? Spread very thin, trying to help multiple people with some very, very heavy stuff. It would be completely forgivable if I were to just roll over and just sort of let that take over. But the thing that needs to happen in order for me to be able to maintain, in order for me to be able to be there for my father, to be there for my friend, and to continue living my best life requires that I take my self-care very seriously.
Well, you have a job. You have kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have your own health to worry about. You have your mental health. You have the long-term effect of taking a few weeks off, because what a great way to ruin your goals for 2024. Like if you just shut down for 3 weeks, woe is me. I'm a victim. Mm-hmm. This bad stuff happened. When you go to start up again 3 weeks from now, it is so much harder. It is so demoralizing starting from scratch. When you're on a roll, when you're doing well, and then the brakes get put on, then what? You know what I mean, Joe? And it's kind of the downward spiral that we talk about. When you're depressed, what do? You act depressed. You sit on your couch, you're in the basement, you don't see the sun, you don't exercise, you start eating bad food, you start drinking, you make that depression worse. You make your problems worse. I always have a saying, don't let your feelings dictate your actions. Let your actions dictate your feelings. It's been the tagline on my email signature for years. But when I feel bad, I don't sit and then act bad, Joe. I do things to make myself feel good. Like if you're sitting at that hospital bed for 16 hours a day just staring at the walls, you're going to feel like trash. But when your dad goes to sleep, get up and go for a walk.
Yeah.
Get out in the sun. Do something productive. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a really sharp contrast between, okay, I'm sitting here at the hospital bed and I'm not taking care of myself. So I don't feel good about the fact that I missed my morning workout, right? That I rely on. I take a walk every morning to just kind of clear my head and get my day in order. I've missed that. So now I feel bad about my dad and guilty about missing my training. And then I'm eating whatever's available, which is not going to be good choices. You're going to be eating out of a vending machine. So I've already made bad choices about my nutrition. So I can feel bad about that as well. And then physically, because I didn't do the walk, because I've been eating garbage food, physically, I'm just going to feel bad. Do I need to keep pouring gasoline on this fire by continuing negative behavior? Or, like you said, is it going to matter if I'm in that room for the next 20 minutes? Can I get up and just walk to the other end of the hospital and back and then sit down and then deal with what's in front of me? Can I go and make maybe not a great choice, but maybe the best choice that I can make when it comes to nutrition so that I can sit down and say, well, I did what I could do on those lines. That little bit of something, that tiny little thing that you're doing to help take care of yourself, to me, that's what pulls you through these hard times. Despite how bad I could feel, despite how depressing my situation could be, I'm still in charge. I'm still making choices and I'm still pushing forward. That gives me hope. That gives me a light at the end of the tunnel and a reason to keep going with this stuff.
Well, Joe, it reminds me of a saying. I actually saw this posted on social media today. If you had a crack in the corner of your iPhone, would you take that iPhone and would you walk to the corner and just smash it into the corner into a million pieces? No, you would go fix the screen, or you would figure it out, or you would still use it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So then the influencer that was posting this said, So if you break your diet and eat a cookie, then why do you go to the cupboard and be like, well, I ruined my diet today. I might as well just eat the whole box. I might as well have a cake too, and I might as well drink 24 beer. Like why when we screw up a little bit in life, we wouldn't do that to our phone. We wouldn't do that to our car. Why when we do that to our body or we do that to our life, then we just make all the bad choices? Like why is that okay?
One bad choice makes you more prone to another bad choice, which is going to make you more prone to another. And, day over day, month over month, year over year, eventually you end up sitting in a hospital bed just falling apart.
Well, and you're doing yourself a disservice, Joe, because if you're just sitting there all day thinking about your problems, and this may sound harsh, but they're going to get worse.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the capacity to deal with them. Like people look at, and what we're ultimately talking about here is self-care. People look at self-care as selfish, but it's actually the most selfless thing you can do, because if you can't take care of yourself, Joe, you can't take care of people around you.
Right.
You need to be at your best so that when you come home from that hospital in bed, looking after your dad, little Jojo and little Max, they don't care. They want their dad. You have to be on. Like you can't just crawl in the basement and cry yourself to sleep. Like you're watching Bluey. You're hanging out. You're going for a walk. You're taking them to the park. You're like, you have to do something. So you've got to do something during that day to make yourself feel better.
Well, and how many people are listening to this can relate with the phrase, I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
Because that's where I think my father's heart is he just doesn't want to be a burden. But the fact that he's not taking care of himself, he's not capable of taking care of himself at this point, it creates a much bigger burden.
Yeah.
If he was super fit and super healthy and had a great social life and was out and about and moving around and living his best life, I wouldn't be worried about him at all. You just make the sun. It's like, I might as well talk about you, Bobby. I'm not worried about you. You know what I mean? When we're off this podcast and I'm going on about my day, like you're doing all the stuff you need to do. And I know this because we talk all day long, but I know you're going to train. I know you're watching your diet. I know you're working on your relationships and doing all the stuff to make I'm not worried about you. You're going to be all right. But if you told me I haven't worked out in 3 weeks and I'm just living in my mom's basement, I'm going to be worried about you. And you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be a burden. So I'm just going to crawl into this closet for the next 4 days. Dude, you're a burden now. You're a huge burden.
Dude, what's going to, and because we're we work together. Now you're asking, what about the podcast? What about the Ladder app? What about Bobby, where's this end? What's going to happen? But the biggest thing you could do is be useful to people around you.
Yeah.
And you may be sitting here thinking, God, you're selfish. You should be sitting by that hospital bed for 16 hours straight, Joe. So I get where you're coming from. You want to always try to do the right thing, but there's only so much you can do, Joe.
Yeah.
If your wife goes in for surgery, routine surgery, I'm not talking life-threatening where she might not make it out the other side and you're waiting for notification, but I'm talking a routine surgery. She's going to be out for 4 hours. Why do you have to sit staring at the walls in the waiting room?
Yeah.
You have your phone. They can call you if anything happens. Why not go for a walk? Why not go grab a workout? Why not do some push-ups in the park across the street? Why not do something to just better yourself? And that's a bit of an extreme situation because people aren't getting routine surgeries every week.
Right, yeah.
But then think about the smaller things that derail people, Joe. Mm-hmm. Not your friend in the hospital, not your dad in the hospital. It was raining.
Right.
My kid had a play. It's a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Day. It's President's Day. It's July the 4th. It's Labor Day. I didn't sleep that well last night.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. My favorite TV show's on. Whatever that looks like, and think about the amount of days that go by that now you're really, really behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Well, and again, once a TV show derails you, you're victim to TV shows now.
Well, and then, Joe, look at the mountain you have to climb to get out of the hole you've dug.
Yeah.
Just think about this for a second. Yesterday when we spoke, I said, Joe, I'm just going to give you a piece of advice. Do what you have to do. Go grab a 20-minute workout, crush it for 20 minutes, answer your messages in the Ladder app, post a TikTok, post a whatever. This will take you maybe an hour, maybe. Find an hour in a day to just do everything you need to do, and then you can go check out. Because what's the end result? If this thing with your dad drags on for a month, at least at the end of the month, you're at least not, you don't have now a mountain of shit to climb out from under.
Yeah, you don't have an inbox that's like so full that you're just going to go through and mark everything red because you have no ability to actually process it. Like,
just do the thing. And conversely, what allows you to make a 20-minute workout effective? The fact that you've been working out every day for a year and you didn't let an episode of Bluey get in the way of your push-ups so that you can actually do enough push-ups, squats. And I'm going to reference a workout, Joe. We do a workout called 220. It's 10 push-ups, 10 squats, 10 sit-ups on the minute every minute for 20 minutes. A lot of people can't do it, but you can.
Yeah.
Which means now in 20 minutes, when your dad goes for a nap, you can sit right in that I was going to say hotel room, but it's not a hotel room, right in that hospital room and just get something done.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
Just go down to the waiting room and just do it there. Like there's an option. There's no excuse here. You don't need somebody's permission.
Didn't they boot you out yesterday for like a mandatory rest period or something like that?
Yeah. There's quiet times, from 2 to 4, all visitors are off the unit. It's like, well, that was my chance to go do all the stuff I needed to do. I ended up getting a hotel room. I had a nice meal. I got a workout in. I went back to my dad's apartment and got all his, personal effects that he needs. And at the end of that rest period, I walked into the room and I was able to hand everything off. Here's your glasses. Here's your phone. Better. Like yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And so that day suddenly became very productive as opposed to sitting in a waiting room for 2 hours, like you said.
And what does very productive look like? 2 hours, Joe? Like that's the thing. If you really get to it, you have the horsepower to get a lot done in 2 hours versus just sitting there feeling sorry for yourself.
Well, and it's easy to just be overwhelmed, to feel the pressure. I have 2 sisters. We're worlds apart right now. One's in Missouri, one's in Texas. And so trying to keep everybody up to date, answering everybody's questions, being the person who's front and center on this. They want, understandably, to know what's going on. They want to know if they need to come up. They want to know what I need for help. And so there's this pressure with that. There's work stuff, right? You and we've got this podcast to do. We've got an app to manage. I've got clients I need to take care of. There's all of that stuff that needs to happen, right? There's special stuff the Ladder Company has asked us to do this week. We're trying to figure all that stuff out. I could very easily just feel completely overwhelmed and say it's impossible for me to handle all of this and just give up. Or I just pick one thing. Okay, I got a 10-minute thing. They're coming in to do some test on my dad. I got 10 minutes. I can step out in the hallway. I can answer those couple of emails. Okay, I got 5 minutes over here, with this little portable device we all carry in our pocket. I can get some posts up on social media and I haven't missed a beat. And it doesn't take a ton of time. And those tiny little things, we always talk about stacking wins, they start adding up. And at the end of the day, I've done more than I probably should have expected that I could do. And it was just one small thing at a time. And I didn't miss anything
But can you imagine going the other way? Feeling sorry for yourself for a month, using all your vacation time, using all your PTO or whatever it is. Now, we don't have that, but we're talking normal person speaking. We've had regular jobs, and then you don't post on your social media. And I say that because it's part of your job. Some normal people it wouldn't matter. But you let everything go. And then again, at the end of that month, then you have a mountain to climb out from. And in a year, you haven't achieved your goals. So now you're left with shame. You're left with guilt. You're left with excuses. Like, it's a terrible way to live. I'll tell you 2 stories that fundamentally changed my life, Joe. Number 1, my dad died when I was 20 years old. And I was having a rough time. Like, my dad was my best friend. I didn't know what was going to happen with the university, what was going to happen with wrestling. Like, everything I knew was just gone. And I remember after about a week of me laying around, my mom came down to the basement because that's where my room was. And she's like, you got to go back to school. Yeah, but my dad died. She said, I don't give a shit who died. She goes, I have to go back to work. The bank wants their money for the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to work. I've got to look after you two kids. Like, I don't get to feel sorry for myself. Like, I need to handle some stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and everything falls on the spouse, by the way.
Yeah.
Because who has to deal with the life insurance if there is life insurance? Who has to deal with the credit cards? Who has to deal with the bank statements? Who has to deal with my dad's job? It's the wife. It's the spouse. And so she's like, you don't get to do this. Me and your dad put way too much in you for you to just flake out, get your ass moving. And I was back at school.
Mm-hmm.
So that was lesson number one. It's like life goes on. And by the way, as grim as this sounds, if your wife Megan dies or my wife Lisa dies, you don't get to check out.
No.
You got a Max and a JoJo. You got like a 5 and a 7-year-old. Like I got 3 kids. I don't get to check out and feel sorry for myself. I have responsibilities, Joe, and I can't just go into a drug or a booze fueled bender for the next 12 years. Yeah. Feeling bad about what the big bad world did to me. Like life goes on. Now, the second thing was my dad died October 15th, and my wrestling coach told me to take as much time as I needed to get my head right. And I took some time. Like I took, October, obviously, took November, and then December's kind of a weird month for wrestling in university in Canada because it's exam season. So things kind of shut down, Joe. Like our last wrestling meets December 2nd, and then you don't wrestle again until like January 3rd or 4th. I mean, you have practices and stuff, but there's also Christmas break. People go home. So it's kind of like a natural off month anyway, if that makes sense. But I took till January. And in early January, our team captain, really good friend of mine, sat me down. He's like, I want to talk to you. It was over lunch. All right, what's going on? And he literally looks me in my eye and says, boo-hoo, your fucking dad died. Grow up. I'm like, what the fuck did you just say to me? He goes, are you going to help us win a national championship or not? And I'm like, it was so forceful and so abrasive and so like abrupt, Joe. I was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. So I started wrestling again. Like, and it was just what he meant to say.
Yeah.
What he meant to say in his own special way, because he's a bit of an abrupt guy. What he meant to say was, you can't bring your dad back. You've worked too hard for this. We have a chance to really do something you'll remember forever. This is what your dad would have wanted. You can cry your eyes out 20 hours a day, but just give us 4. We need you.
Yeah.
I was a heavyweight. I had a legitimate chance to win. Like, we can't do this without you. So, like, what do you want to do here? And so those 2 things fundamentally shifted how I thought about life, Joe. Because you don't get excuses. Like, you have to show up to work. The bank is coming for your house. They want their mortgage payment. They don't care. You were a mortgage counselor for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, so let's play this through. You're a mortgage you did this for a living for a minute, right? This is why I say we live in the real world. Megan dies. You lose your job. What a sob story. Like, what a horrible thing to happen, right? Like, I'm not making fun of it, but like, that sounds pretty bad. How long will the bank give you before they foreclose you?
Well, I'm in Minnesota, so we've got about 12 months.
Okay, but are they giving you 3 years because you got dealt a bad hand? No. Are they giving you know what I'm saying, Joe?
It's like all of those processes, they are completely impersonal. They are just words on paper. And the bank is just following the rules of the paperwork you signed when you bought the house. That's all there is to it.
During those 12 months, just so we're clear, do you get free mortgage? Like, do they not expect money? Do you owe arrears? Like, are they handing out?
It's super interesting. I could do a whole show on this. It just depends.
Okay.
The reality is, if you can't pay, you can't pay. And you shouldn't send them money that's not going to satisfy them. And so, to a certain degree, in some states, yeah, you can miss your mortgage payments right up until they foreclose on you. And at that point, whatever money you've saved is yours. But they are going to come after you for anything you owe. So
that's what I mean. It's not just free. It's not
it
just
isn't
12
just
months
free.
of no payments.
No,
Like they're going to
can
get that on the
survive.
back end.
Like the way the system is set up is if you understand the rules, you can survive. You can find a way to sort of minimize the damage and you can land on your feet. But you're probably going to need some help with that. And obviously, if you're without income, that you just don't have any choices. All your choices are being made for you. But yeah, the bank, it's an impersonal process. So whether you've got a sad story or not isn't really going to change the duration, right? Like one step happens, the next step happens, the next step happens, and that's all paced out. It's all in the paperwork. And you can be like, yeah, but I'm really sad. And they're going to be like, okay, so the next step is going to happen in 30 days.
So question for you though.
Mm-hmm.
The CEO of Chase that took home a $28 million bonus this year.
Yeah.
In your experience, did he ever call you and say like, hey man, listen, this guy's wife died. He lost his job. Like, I'm going to do him a solid here.
Usually the story's the other way. Like, my husband is working for the government and he's shipped overseas on active duty. And Congress hasn't passed a funding bill, so he hasn't gotten a paycheck in 6 months. And the bank's foreclosing on the woman who's staying behind in the house to raise the kid, even though that's against federal law. These things happen. This is the world we live in.
Just so we're clear, so we can wrap this whole podcast up. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to bail you out. Nobody's coming to help you. There's no guardian angel. Life sucks. Nobody cares. Work fucking harder. Is that a good a good wrap up?
Is it good? It's a little bit depressing, but it's a true statement. It's 100% a true statement, and it's something that you have to accept. You have to accept that if you decide to just sort of wallow in self-pity about your situation, yeah, you might get a phone call from someone saying, boy, it sure sucks that you're going through that, but ain't nobody going to come in and fix your situation for you. You got to fix it yourself. And if you take the actions, if you make decisions and you take action to help improve your situation, people who are empowered to do so will help you do that. They want you to succeed, but only if you're already taking that initiative.
It's funny.
They're not going to come in and rescue you.
You're like this because you're a good Catholic boy. I'm not. But my grandma has a saying. And it's get off your knees and stop praying. God only helps people that help themselves. I'm like, you ain't wrong, Grandma. You know what I mean, Joe? Like you can go beside the bed and you can like put your knees on the ground. You could ball your little hands up in a fist under your chin and you could just pray. But what do you think Jesus is going to do? Like just rain gold coins on your property to help you pay for your mortgage?
Doesn't have a track record of that. It's funny. Right? My grandfather had a saying that's kind of in the same vein, and it was pray like you're going to die tomorrow, but work like you're going to live forever.
Yeah. Same thing. There's no miracle. Stop. Like I don't know what miracle you think is going to happen, but like Joe, like and not to make light of the religious people out there, but like I get it that your family's starving. Jesus isn't making 5,000 fish and 9,000 loaves of bread for you.
Well, think about this. Make this very practical. Like maybe your situation is like you're broke. You lost your job. You need a pile of money, and you're like, man, I wish that I could just win the lottery. Well, guess what? You got to go buy a ticket.
Yeah.
If you're not even willing to go buy a ticket, your odds of winning the lottery are
you ain't getting nothing. You got to do something. Like you got to get out there. So there's two things that like I really want to focus on before we go. Number one, you got JP. If you manage to take care of yourself a little bit, and by the way, JP's not a professional athlete. I want to make that clear. He's not living like we are. If you do what JP did and do some self-care along the way, when the bad thing happens to you, you have a chance of surviving it. You have a greater chance of coming through. And guess what else is going to happen because he took care of himself, Joe? His rehab is not only going to be easier, it's going to be possible. I say this all the time. If you're 340 pounds and 50 years old and you blow your ACL, good luck. You might be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. If you're you, Joe, and you're 220 pounds and you're fit and you're active and you've kept your musculature up, and you get in a car accident and hurt your leg, or you go skiing and blow your ACL, you're fit enough to do the rehab. You're fit enough to get back on your feet. Like JP, because of the working out he's done now, he can do the rehab necessary to live a normal life. Because
I'll tell you, like right now, what does he want to do? He wants to go work out, and he's limited in what he can do. And that's frustrating. And that's a very different thing than not being willing to lift a finger.
Yeah. Or here's what you need to do for rehab, but you can't because you've let yourself down. So there's a certain amount of preparedness here. That's number one. But then number two, when the bad thing does happen, still make time for you. Still make time for your self-care. Still make time to get in the sun. Still make time to walk. If the doctor says, JP, you can walk 20 steps a day, you better be walking those 20 steps a day.
Yeah.
Like, don't take one step. You know what I mean, Joe? In fact, maybe push a limit a little bit and take 21.
Make the doctor slow you down.
Make the doctor. I actually have a friend. There's a real story. I can't remember what the name of it is, Joe. You might know. It's that heart condition where your heart rate's not allowed to be elevated because you could very legitimately die. I can't remember what it's called, but the doctors told him never exercise again. And he came to me and he goes, that doesn't sit right with me. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like never exercising again is worse than like having my heart rate a little bit elevated. Like, what's the deal? And I'm like, well, are you allowed to walk? He's like, yep. I'm like, well, then why don't you walk every day?
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to power walk. I'm not asking you to lift weight, to have the ankle weights and do the whole thing, but why not just walk every day? And then number two, why don't you play around with it for a little bit? Wear a heart rate monitor.
Mm-hmm.
See what your heart rate goes up to when you do a set of 10 bench presses at 5 pounds.
Yeah, set a limit, right?
So now fast forward, I think it's been 3 years now. Dude's on like a full-blown weightlifting program. Now, Joey's not doing circuit training. He's not doing CrossFit. He's not running 5 miles for time. But he has a more robust exercise program than 99% of the people listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually shouldn't say that. I apologize. That was unkind. It was judgmental. I really hope that the people that listen to this podcast are people that exercise and take an interest in their health and wellness. So I shouldn't say that. But he has
I pray that we're preaching to the choir most of the time.
But he has a more robust workout program than most people out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. So when the bad thing does happen, take care of yourself.
Well, and I'll even summarize this as being, if you don't want to be a burden, don't be a burden. Take care of yourself. Don't leave that up to other people. Like you have the ability to determine how much help you need in some ways. And then when you do need help, ask.
Yeah.
Don't assume that someone else is going to figure it out. They're not going to pry. And if you're just going to feel embarrassed and not ask for help, you're going to become a bigger and a bigger and a bigger burden all the way to your grave.
Yeah, like do your thing, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine us being partners? My mother-in-law had to get a surgery, an emergency hip replacement.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had to, I think you remember this, it was like a month ago, and 6 weeks ago, and she had to fly out to Detroit for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine I just said to you, all right, Joe, no ladder, no podcast, no social media, I'm done. Like, whoa, dude. Like, is it really the road you want to go down? Like, you want to lose your salary? You want to get fired? You want to give up on your fitness goals? You want to, all of a sudden, I'm looking after 3 kids by myself, Joe. And I'm like I have a really awesome partner in Lisa. Like, she's taking the kids to school, and like we team up. Guess who that landed on? Did you hear me cry about it once?
No, never. Wouldn't have even known. Wouldn't have even known.
No, now was it hard? Yes. Was I exhausted at the end of the day? Yes. Was I just like, oh my God, babe, like I didn't realize how much you did. Like, you were awesome. Yes. But you just handle your business, Joe.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key. If you don't handle it, nobody else is going to come in and handle it for you.
Nobody cares.
They don't care. They don't care what your personal struggles are, right? People on the outside. I try to remind people of this all the time, but for the most part, you probably don't cross people's mind as much as you think you do.
No.
People aren't sitting around thinking about what other people are doing. They tend to be worried about their own business. And if there's something that's on your plate that affects their life, they're waiting for that thing to get done.
Yep.
They're not worried about whether you can handle it. If you need help, you've got to ask for it. You've got to get the help. And hopefully that's going to open a door where now you've got an ability to kind of manage those things, right? We're trying to stay healthy and vibrant and independent so that we can be of use to other people, right?
Absolutely.
Your life isn't about you. You should live a life of service to your fellow man.
In the face of these bad things that happen, like, tell me, what's the percentage of couples that get divorced?
Yeah.
50%, 60%, 70%. So you can assume you're probably going to get divorced at some point in your life. You did this as a mortgage counselor. How many people lose their homes? A lot more than you think.
Yeah.
How many people lose their jobs? A lot more than you think. You know what scared me as a police officer, Joe? The amount of homes that get broken into. The amount of people that get raped or abused. The amount of people that get assaulted.
And in the neighborhoods where you wouldn't even imagine.
That are in car accidents. Like, bad stuff happens to good people, is a mafia saying. Bad stuff happens to good people all the time, Joe. Like, there's a lot of truth in that statement. When you start stacking up what can happen to you, the world's not a nice place.
Well, and there is good news.
The time.
Because the bad news is that, well, there's two bits of bad news that you have to really process. One is that, yes, bad things do happen and you may not be able to avoid it. The second thing is it can bury you. It can absolutely bury you. And when you stop taking care of yourself, it spirals and it gets worse and harder to turn that around and to get out of that. But the good news is that you're never more than one action away from turning that around. One positive choice can be the seed you need to make another positive choice, to make another, and start stacking those wins all over again.
That's all it is, Joe. It's stacking wins. You don't have to go to the gym and crush it, but start with a walk.
Yeah.
Start with maybe just 10 push-ups a day. Do you realize 10 push-ups a day for a whole year is 3,650 push-ups versus the 0 you would have done? It's just 10 squats a day. It's just something, Joe. Like, just something to keep yourself in. And then guess what happens? Hope builds on hope. You do one thing, then you want to do 2, then you do 3, then you feel empowered, then you feel positive, then you just keep building. It's just like, Joe, when you work out, it's easier to eat healthy. When you eat healthy, it's easier to work out. When you eat healthy and work out, it's easier to go to sleep at night. Like, this stuff just all builds on each other.
The word that I really like when people say, what is the benefit of training, is resilience. You're much more capable of dealing with that bad shit when it does go down. You'll bounce back faster. You'll come back stronger. But that's only if you keep those habits going. It's only if you continue to make that choice every damn day and continue to work forward. And if you do, then yes, bad stuff's still going to happen, but you'll be able to bounce back a lot faster.
You'll be good. And I get that it sucks. I get that it's hard. I get that you don't want to do it, but you have to do it.
And additionally, I'm glad that I'm able to do it. I'm glad that I'm able to be there for my father. I'm glad that I'm able to be there for my friend. And I'm glad that they can rely on me. You know, if I was so untrustworthy or flaky or, you know, out of shape in my own right, that they couldn't call.
You went down a different road than I would have with the flaky and stuff. I'm just saying, so unfit you couldn't handle the stress.
Yeah.
So unfit that you couldn't be there all day.
Right.
So unfit that you couldn't help them and have enough left for your kids or wife.
Yeah, and then you're just making the situation worse for everybody.
Yup. And that's it. So whoever you are, wherever you are, we get it. Life's tough. We go through it too. But just handle your business. Do what you're supposed to do. And above all else, don't forget about your self-care. It's not selfish. It's actually the least selfish thing that you can do.
Yeah.
That's it for another episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Love you all. We'll see you next week.